There we go. So hi, everybody. I'm Julie Bowering, and I'm the Career Advisor for the School of Graduate Studies at Memorial. Um, I realize not all of you may be graduate students. Some of you may be alumni. Some of you may be undergrads or others. That's fine too. I know that this event was part of Career Week, so that might be part of it. I coordinate a program called Enhanced Development of the Graduate Experience, which is a website for graduate students for professional and career and academic development. And it's also applicable to others as well besides graduate students. So I will share the website at the end just to go over some of the resources in it. Please feel free at any time to butt in, ask a question, comment. If you like, you can put it in the chat. I usually see it when I'm in full screen, but if I don't, I can check afterwards. I do have several links in this presentation, so I'm not going to open them as I go through the slides, but as we have time at the end, I do have them open here, so I will go into some of them as well. All right, so we'll get started. So as you know, this presentation is about professional networking job. This is just a general slide I've included. It shows the EDGE website, but for those who may not be graduate students, it also shows some information on the School of Graduate Studies website and also our application website. So that's some resources. So this is just a bit about what networking is. And I guess before we start talking about networking, you'll probably hear me say throughout the presentation, talk about building relationships more than using the word networking. I don't really like that word. To me, networking is about building relationships, getting to know people, getting to know you. So if you hear me say building relationships, that's what I'm talking about. So basically, it's developing contacts or exchanging information with others in an informal or formal setting. So it could be an impromptu setting socially. It could be a more formal setting like a career fair or some kind of employee networking event or employer networking event. So it's sharing knowledge and information, getting help you need and helping others. So it's important to know that this is reciprocal. So this is a back and forth type of relationship. And the last 2 points I have in bold because I think they're the most important, particularly this one, building relationships early. I often see students who have reached the end of their program and have not started to, kind of put themselves out there, start talking to people, maybe in their field, and build relationships with folks. And to be successful in the job search, you definitely want to start that early. It's also important to market yourself. If you don't tell employers about your skills and your experience and expect them just to glean it from a resume, it's going to be more challenging to promote yourself for sure. So you really need to be able to talk about yourself comfortably, whether it's, like I said, an informal setting, formal setting, or in an interview. This is what it's not. Meeting someone for the first time and asking them on the spot to help you. Networking is a process. It does take time, which is why we say you want to start it early. Sending people messages on social media, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, others, asking them questions, sending a stranger your resume. When I say stranger, it's probably, maybe just someone you haven't met before, and haven't had previous communication with, asking them to read it and offer advice. And also just, having a sense of urgency. So expecting people you don't know to drop what they're doing to help you. So, most people are not, this is not an issue for most, but it's really important to know that this is what building relationships is not about. So getting started, creating a plan. think about why you're networking. Like, why are you doing this? It depends on what stage you are in your program or in your career. So if you're at the beginning of your degree, you may not be networking, building relationships necessarily for job search right away. It could be for professional development. And there could be a lot of reasons, just finding out about different careers. So it's important to research, join organizations, professional organizations, attend networking events. Really, really important to do that throughout your whole student journey, for sure. And any by professional associations, what I will give examples in the presentation, but I mean any that are related to your field. So you can actually take part in conversations that are related to what you're studying. So map out your network as well, review, organize your contacts. That's important. And look for places to network. And I have industry associations here, question mark. So that's an example that I'll show you later. And you've probably all heard this about goals, specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and timed. So that's important too, because you don't want to just go out and blast a bunch of people or not be strategic about who you're reaching out to. You really want to take this step by step. This is just a very simple visual gives you an idea of just how big your network is. So some of this may not be relevant to some people, some of these blocks, others might be. It depends on who you are and where you are. But this just is an example to show you to kind of open your mind about where your network might be. So, you're thinking you may not have any contacts, but, if you're job searching or if you're wanting to find out more information about a career, everyone you know should know that. So if there's anybody they're in contact with, they can refer you as well. So you may have heard of this elevator pitch. This is another term I'm not very fond of. I prefer to think of it as just as your short introduction of yourself. So this is a typical few sentences, phrases that allow you to to introduce professionally who you are. So if it's a lead sentence, captures the listener's attention. You need to be thinking about things you can do for them. How is what you do helpful to them? What can they do for you? Can you answer a question? So it's very much a reciprocal conversation. And I know this sounds very formalized and structured, but really these are just the things you want to be thinking of when you're when you're thinking about your introduction. And if you're attending events and you're going to be introducing yourself, it's always good to determine who will be attending in advance, if possible, whether it's a virtual event or an in-person event. It really allows you to personalize your introduction and helps you build a better connection as well. I do have a couple of YouTube videos that I will embed in the presentation before I post the slides, and I do have the links open as well. So some of those I think would be useful because there's one in particular that explains it, and there's another one that gives a lot of different examples depending on who you're talking to, which I really like. There's tons of this stuff, as you can imagine, on the internet. These two I think are helpful. So informational interviews is another popular term when it comes to building relationships and networking. I speak a lot about this myself because I have a lot of personal experience with it. When I wanted to get into the field of career advising, I did a lot of this, and I tell people that at the time I didn't have a term for it. I just knew that in order to make myself known, have other people meet me, have conversations, be able to show my skills, I had to reach out to people. So, I talked to anyone who would talk to me in the community about career advising, for example, and career development when I wanted to get into this field. reached out and to all kinds of people. And these days, you can reach out to people. People are even more accessible through LinkedIn, through various industry associations, and I'll give you some examples. But really, an informational interview provides you with a first-hand personal account of what it's like to work somewhere. People like to make connections and face-to-face connections, whether that's in person or virtually. And it really helps you find out if a position or company matches your own interests, skills, and career goals because you're asking questions. These are just some of there's tons of reasons, but some reasons why you want to do informational interviews are really to explore different careers if you're not sure, clarify your career goal, expand your professional network. That's huge. Build confidence for your job interviews. So this is not a job interview, an informational interview. This is more of I want to say casual conversation. I'm not sure it's a casual conversation, but it is really a no pressure situation where you're having a conversation with somebody and asking them questions. So it's reciprocal. You can access the most up-to-date career information. So you may be working on your degree or have your degree or have already worked somewhere else. And you may think that you know what you need in order to move into this career, but actually going to the source and finding somebody who's in the career, you may gain information that you didn't know. It really helps you with your strengths and weaknesses. Identify them if you can't identify them. You'll identify them very quickly in a situation like this. You may walk away from some of these conversations thinking, oh, I need to improve this, or I need to improve my communication skills, or, I didn't say that, I should have explained that better. So it's really a good opportunity to practice as well, as I said earlier, for job interviews. And you gain a lot of experience and visibility. Prepares you for the future and allows you the opportunity to network with others in your field. So it's basically a summary of why you would do an informational interview. I do have some example questions on this slide. This is by no means an exhaustive list. I also have some links here that I will open at the end of the presentation that would be helpful. But when I was doing informational interviews, these are the types of questions that I remember. And it depended too, depending on who I was talking to. But this question here is, this very last one, do you know of anyone else I might contact to gain further insight into this job, career, industry, whatever it is? That is a really important question, and I would never leave a conversation without asking that question. They may not, but usually someone will know, have another contact, maybe in the same area, maybe in a different area, that they can refer you to. And these days there's resources for this. So Student Life has a great page that describes what an informational interview is, gives a longer list of possible questions. And also this other link here is way more comprehensive. I really like it, much more detailed. Gives a lot of examples, even examples of crafting emails. I think they have like 200 examples of questions you can ask at an informational interview. So these are some resources to help you. And also, this is the most important thing to remember, that an informational interview is not a job interview. And it can be done at any time. So again, if you're just starting your program, that's probably one of the best times to do it, because you don't really have an agenda at that time. It really gives you the chance to start at the beginning and build up your network. Does anybody have any questions at this time? Just gonna check the chat. All right. No questions. If you have any comments or questions, please just interrupt anytime. These are just some general tips. Just go over these quickly. Some of these are very obvious. You want to act professionally, whether it's email, phone, messages, in their office. Provide them with your background, career goals, and I say this should happen naturally in any kind of a conversation, but that's something that you definitely want to do. Ask them if it's okay to contact them in the future. So you may walk away from a conversation after you think about it and have other questions, or other things that you've thought about. So that's another idea. Thank them for their time and follow up later with an email. That's important too, thanking people. Provide them with a resume only if that's for it. That's just a reminder that, this is really not a job interview. This is more of an exploratory conversation. Make sure, obviously, that they have contact information for you. And I really like this last one. Let them know of any contact you have with leads or people they refer you to. Um, I always like when I have conversations with students and alumni, and I'll make suggestions, to speak to have a look at a certain industry association, for example, and they may get back to me 6 months later and say, "Oh, I reached out to them. This worked out really well." It's always nice, again, to keep everything in motion. So it's not just a one-time thing. It's always nice to get back to people who have helped you and provide examples. These are some examples of professional or industry associations. This, these are specific to this province. However, these are everywhere. So I would imagine in some of the larger provinces, there's more, and they're more varied. As an example, if you're in the technology field, you definitely want to have a look at TechNL. This is where you'll find the companies associated with technology in Newfoundland and Labrador. Same thing with environment, oil and gas, aquaculture. The very last one is the St. John's Board of Trade. This is a very general industry association. So you'll find lots of various companies, organizations, nothing really specific to certain fields. But this is a place to start that's better than Googling. So if you're wondering, what's out there, who's out there, what are the categories, what's the contact information, what are the names of these companies, organizations, these are some examples of where you want to go. Building and maintaining your network. So join professional associations if you can. I know there's, in many cases, the fees to join professional associations are very expensive, but you don't know until you research some of these associations. Some of them have student rates or associate rates, and they may just have different options, even if you're not a member, to attend free events. Participate in professional development leadership opportunities. Can't emphasize that enough. So professional development, like going to a session like this, but other things, leadership opportunities, volunteer opportunities, committee work, any of those things. Volunteering is huge. Again, going back to my own experience to draw on, if I use myself as an example, I worked for 3 different not-for-profit organizations in my previous life. And in every single case, when I was hired, I was a volunteer first. So, and in the latter situation, I was there for 13 years when I was hired. So, can't emphasize enough the face-to-face contact and networking and how important it is. This kind of the second or the next point here speaks to what I said about staying in contact with your contacts, keeping them up to date on your successes or involvement. Because that is part of building relationships. It's not just kind of a one-off thing. This is another link that I have as a resource, Guide to Successful Job Search Networking, which I'll show you after. And one of the quotes is people hire people they like and trust. And you can build that when you're one-on-one with somebody. It's very, very challenging to do that with a resume. even if you have the best written resume in the world, it's a lot more difficult to market yourself to potential employers. So these are some of I wanted to cover some of the online networking platforms as well. If you're not on LinkedIn, you should be, for sure. Some of you may already be aware that this is Career Week. So this is just one of the many events during Career Week. And I did notice, and I don't know if it's over or not because tomorrow's Friday, so it may already be done. But there was or is a session on creating your LinkedIn profile. I have some resources here on how to network on LinkedIn. And just some, I didn't cover all the platforms. Facebook is, still used by some companies to post jobs and promote events. Liking organizations in your field are important, and you can join discussions on company pages. I've been really using Twitter a lot. I have a Mon Edge Twitter account, and I encourage all students and alumni to follow because I post jobs there. I share tweets from the industry associations. It's a really good and quick opportunity to link to people and organizations that you're interested in and really find out more information about some of the trends in your field as well. So these things are important. And for Twitter, I have the Mon Edge Facebook and I have the Mon Edge Twitter, but I always say, because it's just easier, the Twitter account is where I would post more often. It's just more effective. And even if you're not somebody who likes Twitter or even has a profile, that's fine. I always say, even if you just want to sign up to follow something that might be relevant, like Mon Edge, Mon Career, if you're an international student, maybe the internationalization office, some of the industry events, organizations that I mentioned. So all these things are important. These are more resources that I will show you some of. Another link on how to cultivate a powerful network on LinkedIn. Some essential networking tips specific to graduate students. This one here on expressing gratitude in professional relationships, so thanking people. Some more tips for informational interviews. And this is kind of a neat article as well, especially for anyone in the research field, talking about your elevator pitch, so your introduction, and turning it into what they call an escalator pitch, which is one sentence or maybe one or two sentences. And for anybody who's doing research, it's a great way to test yourself to condense your research in layman's term in one or two sentences. That's good as well. These are just slides that I have in most of my presentations. If you haven't heard of 10,000 Coffees, you may want to check this out. This is what I call an internal LinkedIn. A lot of universities have this platform, are part of this platform. Memorial is one of them. So it's basically database students, alumni, all from Memorial University, and it's global. And you can reach out to people. So if you look at a profile and you think it's interesting, and you think that someone's in a career that looks like it might be for you, and you want to ask more questions, you can reach out. And alumni who sign up there, they know why they're signing up, so they would expect to be contacted. So I know some people have had some success with this program. So this is another thing I'd encourage. And I know during Career Week, there was a session scheduled for this too, I think. This is another great networking platform. You can actually, if you have a LinkedIn account, you can actually go right into that through your LinkedIn account. It's a little bit less direct than 10,000 Coffees, but it does give you a good sense of what's going on in the province, who's doing what, and really gives you an opportunity to try to build relationships, and not just obviously locally. This is, people relating to the province from all over. So this is just the definition of what EDGE is, which I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation. Offers workshops, resources, workshops like this one, to help graduate students build skills and competencies to be successful in grad school and beyond. But as I said at the beginning, some of these things on the EDGE website are specific to graduate students. The majority of it is very relevant to everyone. So that's why I make these sessions accessible to whoever wants to attend. I do have a Twitter presence and a Facebook presence as well, as I mentioned, and the website is very, very simple. It's just a microsite, .ca/edge. So before I go into some of those links and the EDGE website, are there any questions or comments? All right. I think everybody's tired of being online. Okay, so a few more people there since we started. Oh, somebody has a question? You can go ahead.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes.
So I had a question regarding remote opportunities. How do you how easy is it to look for remote opportunities in today's world in terms of networking? Are employers primarily looking for in-person candidates, or are they more open to remote working from different locations as well?
I think that's really going to depend on the employer. I know some are, especially nowadays, but it's really going to depend on the type of work and the employer. The best way, obviously, to network with, if you're looking for a remote job, would likely be, for LinkedIn or 10,000 Coffees, some of the online platforms. But it would be hard to say. I do see some. I see more than I obviously because of COVID. Folks that are advertising for remote opportunities. I don't know if that helps.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks for that. Thanks for clarifying.
No problem. Somebody's, Georgie's asking, will I be sharing the slides? So if you're a registered graduate student, there's a shell on Brightspace called Mun Graduate Commons, where I upload all the slides and recordings of these sessions. If you're not a registered graduate student and you would like them, or one or the other, just email me. And I'll be able to send it to you. But usually within a day or so, I have the slides and recording uploaded to the Brightspace shell. All right. I'll share some of these links with you. Okay, so this was one of the first ones I opened or showed you. This is the student life page that talks, it's a little bit repetitive in what I said, but it really explains well, I think, what an informational interview is, when to use it, what to ask, and it does give some sample questions. That's kind of an introduction to informational interviewing. The one I mentioned as well, and also if I'm talking and you can't see what I'm talking about, please let me know, because that's happened a couple of times. But thinking that right now you should see the ultimate guide to an informational interview. This is a great link, great page, and you can see why. It's very detailed, talks about best practices, gives examples of ways to write requests for informational interviews. What I like is this. It gives, a whole long list of, questions you can ask. So if you're stuck for what to ask, there's a whole lot of things here. And it doesn't mean that you would ask these questions or you'd even be comfortable asking some or would it be even relevant. But at least this is a resource that gives you some food for thought. And you can see here at the top, this little, excuse me, block here that says 85% of all jobs are filled through networking. So I don't know where that data comes from or if it is actual, but I can tell you anecdotally from my own experience and from others, I know their experience, this is very much a true statement. I probably wouldn't make a specific number, but I would say that the majority of jobs are filled through networking. This is another link. Really like this one because it's diverse. Like it gives you examples of various different things that you might need to do in a job search. Talks about elevator pitch, gives you keywords to improve your job search, and then talks about how to connect with recruiters on LinkedIn. And I know some of these links I have, I believe this one. The date is not on this one, but I was going to say some of these links I have, are not old, but they're a few years old, but still very, very, very relevant. So I keep them in my presentation. This is another one talking about how to network on LinkedIn and give specific examples from people. So, if you have questions about, moving offline after having a LinkedIn conversation, just gives you some tips. And I really like this too. How can introverts best utilize LinkedIn to overcome a common aversion to in-person networking, networking events? Because this is a common question and thing that I talk about a lot. I mean, most of us are not extroverts. I'm not an extrovert. And this is why I always promote one-to-one networking. You don't have to feel like you went back when we did, have to walk into a huge room and become overcome, having to talk to everyone. It can be, you can pick and choose who you like to talk to, and just being authentic and curious and yourself, that's what makes a difference. So I do like some of the tips, some of these resources that I have. This is an older link, yeah, it is, but still has some really good tips. Yeah, use groups. That's a really good, simple one, but a really good group, a really good suggestion. Essential networking tips for grad students. This is a little bit more specific to grad students. It even talks, about going to a major international conference. It just gives you some tips, and even sample questions. So, these are a little bit more specific to, so you see it as a company, do they promote independent research projects? So it's a little bit more specific to academia, and just talks about how you would maintain the relationship. So generally, the ideas in a lot of these links are the same. But I find that there's different ideas, different resources in the various web pages. This one here on expressing gratitude in professional relationships and connected academics. And again, I know this says preparing, PhD students in HSS, Humanities and Social Sciences. This is relevant. These are still relevant to a lot of fields. So this person talks about writing thank you notes, but these days, and they do show an example of an email here. And I really like this because I get asked this all the time, some version of this. What can I say, or how can I start conversations, and there's all kinds of ways. And the most important thing is to be genuine. But here's a good example of something that's really not, it's not a big long letter, but it's very specific, shows gratitude, recognizes, what you discussed, and actually makes a request, a personal request, to connect on LinkedIn. So I think these examples are invaluable in terms of making suggestions on where to start. These are more tips for informational interviewing. These are just general tips. So again, what I like too about these resources is that there's consensus among, you will see some different ideas, but there is consensus on what works and what's important, for sure. This is what I was talking about, the elevator pitch into an escalator pitch for university affairs. So, I talked about the elevator pitch and that being kind of an introduction. This is who I am, and it may be, 30 seconds. This person who writes this article talks about an escalator pitch like this statement, which I love. I'm helping to cure degenerative diseases using stem cells. Like that's great. If you're able to sum up what you do like that, very clear, everyone can understand it, it's impactful. So that's what we mean by like a shorter type of statement. So if you can even start thinking about ways you can talk about your work like that, it will definitely be an advantage. Won't go into these, but I will embed them into the presentation. There's a lot of, like I said, all kinds of stuff out there on YouTube and on the internet. I do like the fact that this person, describes an elevator pitch well, goes through the different steps. And also, I like this one because it gives examples. So it's not like the same elevator pitch for, maybe a recruiter or than it would be for a potential employer that you're speaking to directly. Some are more formal, some are less formal. And I think the thing to keep in mind too with these things is that, when somebody's doing a video, obviously it's going to sound a little bit stilted and, this is what you should do, this is what you should say, but keep in mind that it should be conversational. So it should be the way that I'm talking now. Obviously, you want to be professional and polite, but you don't have to make a list of, all your accomplishments. You really this is something that you want to practice so that you're having an actual profession. And lastly, for those who have seen my presentations before, you have seen this 150,000 times, but this is the Edge website. If you know of others who could benefit from this website and the resources, please share. Won't go into a whole lot of what's in the website because there's a lot. I will highlight some of the things I think are most important. So I talked about my social media feeds. So here they are right on the dashboard, and you can see that, Twitter is the one I have up. As jobs come up, and it could be any type of job, I would post it here. There's a science communication conference. This is a free science communication conference. We're always trying to encourage students to do presentations, communicate their research. Another great opportunity that a lot of people don't know about that I'll post. Here's my ad, my promotion for today's event. So this gives you an idea of a very small idea, because there's a lot of things I would post here. But if you follow Mon Edge, like I said, Mon Career, some of the industry associations, you don't even have to follow that many places. And you will be in the loop on a lot of things that can help you with anything to do with career and professional development. I want to go here to the workshops and events. These are all free events that happen every semester. You can see most of these are over now because we're getting closer to the end of the semester. Here's the instructions at the top of the page that tell you where the recordings are and the slides are, undergraduate comments. Shell, go down here. There's a whole list. Everything is accessible to anyone who wants to register. And if they're not, it's specified that it's specifically for my graduate students. So most of these things you're free to register for. And you can see the topics are all very relevant. They're varied. So some are more academic, some are related to career, professional developments, and others are really practical, like this one here in April, right? The principles of budgeting. So we try to provide as much information as we can and resources to help folks on a holistic level. So professionally, academically, career-wise, everything. I will go to this tab, junior degree, because there are things here that are important. Here is our resume guide, for example. This is a PDF, our CV guide, also a PDF. Really important to know the difference between those. And we do presentations on that. I do the resume presentation, and I have our associate dean do the CV presentation because it's more of an academic document. I always show this link, and people might have seen this before. And again, this is from Connected Academics. I know it says transferable skills for PhDs in the humanities. This could say master's, this could say PhDs, this could say humanities, science, engineering. This could say anything. But the important thing to know is that you have great skills as a graduate student, as any student, and as an alumni. If your skills are very academic, if you don't have a lot of work experience, you need to know how to talk about them in a way that's impactful and meaningful in the workplace. So instead of thinking, looking at a job ad and thinking, well, I don't have that experience, chances are you probably do in some way. You just need to be able to talk about it in a way, again, that's meaningful to an employer. Not everybody's left side is going to look like this. Depends if you're research-based, if you're course-based, master's, PhD, depends on a lot of things. But if you can do an inventory of your left-hand side here, your academic skills, and it could be from various degrees. It could be from maybe skills that you've gained from other areas, volunteer work, and know what it means. Know what it means to the workplace. So, and you've seen, some of these things are familiar when you look at the workplace skills, when you look at job ads, for example. I mean, they may not be as specific as this, but this is essentially some of the things that employers are looking for. And one last thing I want to show you on that page. I mentioned the industry associations. So most everything I've included in the presentation is on this EDGE website. I will say that. Maybe not everything, but just about everything. I mentioned these professional associations. So you can see I have a list here of some of these, and they're all the ones. I think I need to add one from the slide. So again, everything you need is here. The earlier you can get started on this, the better. If you're finished your degree or at the end of your degree, it's never too late. If you're right in the middle of your degree, there's a whole section here on academic writing. If you have to write a thesis, there's videos here to help you right from beginning to end. Like I said, there's a lot of things here. So if you can stay up to date on what's happening on the website, the events, and social media, you should be in the loop and up to on everything that's happening for grad students and others for professional development. And you probably noticed when I showed you the workshops link, the register for workshop link, that I even include events that I'm not organizing. So the Faculty of Science, for example, is having an event, I'll put it there. If Student Life is having Career Week, I'll put that there. So I do this because I know we're all busy, and I try to condense everything into one place. So you won't have to be looking everywhere, all over the websites and the university to find things. So I am going to stop sharing. Let me have a look here. Our networking events, more for making contacts or to build relationships with possible employers, or both. Both. Absolutely both. My sense, you know, it's to say building relationships. That should come first, because that's how you make contacts. You know, you can make very superficial contacts being introduced to somebody, but unless you're actually having conversations with someone, not really a meaningful contact, if you know what I mean. But it's definitely for both. But in my mind, events are really, you know, it's a really good time to introduce yourself, talk with people, ask questions, be curious, be genuine, be authentic. You know, there may be people at events, whether they're virtual or in person, that you've researched or you've looked at the company and you know they do A, B, and C, and you're interested in C. You find it, you know, you want to ask more questions about it, then this is your opportunity. And this is why research, not just academic research, but research before you even start all this is so important. Because if you have background, then you have something to go to these events with. And you know, you're prepared, you know about the organization, and you might have questions that you want to ask. Hopefully that helps. All right, I think what I'm going to do now, well, you're welcome. I'm going to stop the recording, just in case anyone wants to comment or ask a question they don't want recorded. If not, that's fine.